Grenada's ninth Prime Minister Honorable Decon Mitchell takes oath following victory at the June 23rd polls. We'll have details to this story and more in the National Report.
Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
Welcome back. With the details to the news for Monday, June 27th, 2022, I am Sherry Noel. Grenada's new Prime Minister Honorable Decon Mitchell spent his first full day in the office on Monday after being sworn in on Friday following his party's victory at the polls the previous day. Following weeks of intense campaigning, the NDC won the polls with 9 seats. Mr. Mitchell promised that moving forward, all decisions will be carefully assessed to ensure that there are no negative repercussions for citizens and the economy.
I humbly accept to go to work on behalf of the people, to go to work on behalf of the citizens of Grenada. And since it seems that my previous career has dominated quite a bit of the political talk, I can assure citizens that the same fervor, the same energy, the same resolve that I brought to my career as a lawyer, I now bring it to and on behalf of all, and let me emphasize, all the citizens of PT Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. And I wish to assure the nation that under my leadership, the National Democratic Congress must lead by example, by taking a united, citizens-first approach to our governance. It does not mean that we will not have to make tough or difficult decisions. And oftentimes, that's the hallmark of leadership. When those decisions are required, we will make them, but we will ensure that we can explain, consult, and justify to our people why we are making the decisions that we make.
Prime Minister Honorable Decon Mitchell congratulated former Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell and his team for retaining sufficient seats to form the opposition. The new government, the Prime Minister said, will be working with the opposition to propel a transformation agenda.
Dr. Mitchell and I spoke this morning, and we both pledged that we would work together to ensure that the people of PT Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada benefit first. So I certainly look forward, particularly in the House of Parliament, to working with the opposition to passing the necessary legislation that we believe will begin the transformation agenda for PT Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada.
Prime Minister Mitchell was sworn in before the Governor-General, Dame Cecile Lagrenade, in the presence of candidates, supporters, family, and friends. Moving along, Friday was a proud day in our nation's history with the swearing-in of the country's 9th Prime Minister at the Grenada Trade Center. Many were in high spirits as they gave their support to Mr. Mitchell. Among them were former political leader of the National Democratic Congress, Tillman Thomas, who congratulated Honorable Decon Mitchell and the NDC administration on their recent victory.
This victory shows that it's a great moment for democracy, a great moment for the NDC and for Grenada. I believe that Decon Mitchell has a team there that could really take Grenada forward. It's a great responsibility. When you look at the history in our time in 2003, we came from a situation where we had no seats, but we came into the parliament in opposition. But he's going into the government, and we expect them to really champion the good governance agenda.
GIS also spoke with some of the candidates who vied for their seats in the general elections on June 23rd.
I feel good. Good that, the people of St. John really came out. They understood and they relate with my vision, and they knew that they didn't have to settle this time around. So I feel happy that they really came out and represented for the NDC.
I feel humbled, honored. This victory clearly demonstrates the people's willingness, but more so the need for change. But this victory is a sweet one, because I have in particular been with the people since the last election. Even when I fall short, I remain with the people. And the mere fact that they went and placed me as a member of parliament clearly demonstrated that they were satisfied, they were happy that I remained with them.
It's a humbling feeling. I think at the end of the day, having go through the entire process and learning and doing so well, it augurs well for future generations of young people who may be interested to run and contest in general elections. Ultimately, I think that the lessons learned is that we need to stick to an agenda. This is about Grenada at the end of the day. It's not just about the personalities and the petty squabbles, but it's about developing and advancing ideas for bringing solutions to people.
This is the National Report. The news will continue after the break.
The house was shaking. Then said the story here, babe. Crack, and the roof had gone.
Man, I was so scared, I nearly wet myself.
Only those who have lived it can truly understand the devastating fury of a hurricane's wind.
The house across the road just get up and roll over.
Hurricane force wind. It's a hazard. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. You can hurricane-proof your home. For example, make your roof more wind-resistant by using screws instead of nails in its construction. Find out more about hurricane force winds and other hazards at your local disaster office.
A message from the National Disaster Management Agency and SEDERA.
Welcome back. Newly elected Prime Minister Honorable Dickon Mitchell spent some time on Monday meeting with Cabinet Secretary Mrs. Ruth Rouse, Permanent Secretary in the Prime Minister's Ministry Mrs. Marina Jessime, and other members of staff. This initiative is expected to continue for the duration of the week as the Prime Minister coordinates between other government ministries until he swears in his new cabinet of ministers. And finally in the news, the Ministry of Education, Human Resource Development, Religious Affairs and Information has begun collecting primary school devices from grade 6 students who were successful in the 2022 Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment. Kwame Hippolyte, who is a strategic officer in the e-learning program at the ministry, explains the procedure.
Well, we have commenced the collection of the devices for the grade 6 students. We are going to be doing so from June 27th, today June 27th, to the 1st July. Our district IT officers, they are leading the process of the collection of the devices along with the junior e-learning champions. At each school, the district IT officer, they are going to examine the device that is returned by the students. Upon examining the device, the students will be issued receipts indicating that a device was returned. Following that, the district IT officers, they are going to ensure that the devices are secured and returned to the Ministry of Education. It's a pretty easy process for the return of the devices, and what we are working with the schools to do is to ensure that the device that was issued to the student is the one that is returned and is returned in good care, in good condition.
If it's not returned in good condition, what happens?
In that instance, we would work with the Device Accountability Committee at the Ministry of Education. They are going to examine the device and the condition that the device is returned, and then we are going to communicate with the parents if there's a need to have the cost of the repair of the part of the device that would have been affected. We're going to communicate with the parents.
Hippolyte says during the August period, they will be configuring the devices for kindergarten and Form 1 students for the new school year. He urges parents and students to care for the devices during the school break. He says the tablets will be collected, checked, and reissued to the students in September at the administrative cost, which is $25 for students in the government school book program and $50 for those who are not.
Well, it is very important that the parents, students care for the devices. Case being that in the new academic year, ebook content will be available for the students, and they will be able to access those via their device. So during the period of the vacation, we advise that the parents and students care for the device. They, in terms of handling, when they're handling the device, do not handle it with food and utilizing it while it is being charged. We also advise them in terms of playing, avoid playing, having the device when they're playing, or that would cause anything that would cause it to fall and damage the screen and so forth. Because come September, we are going to have the reissue of these devices for the students between KG and the grade 5. So we'll have to go through the process of checking all of the devices, and having parents go through the process of being accountable, but also having to be the device reissued and having that $50 administrative and $25 fee be paid again.
Hippolyte notes that devices will be collected from Form 5 students July 4th to 8th. Now for a recap of the top story. Grenada's 9th Prime Minister Honorable DeCon Mitchell takes oath following victory at the June 23rd polls. And with this, we come to the end of the National Report for Monday, June 27th, 2022. On behalf of the entire news and production team, I am Sherry Ann Noel, thanking you for viewing.